Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. So we should talk about Vinted, among other things. So let's maybe take a test of the Vinted awareness in the audience. How many people have bought anything on Vinted?
Nice.
Not bad. We need sellers though, so how many people sell on Vinted?
Nice. We have those network effects going. Sellers becoming buyers, buyers becoming sellers.
It's amazing.
That's great.
How many will try Vinted after this? Hey.
Okay. Some referral rate is happening.
I'm not sure about the acquisition cost on that one, but Vinted. Let's go back to the beginning. You're running Vinted Ventures, but Vinted has a longer history. Can you tell us?
Right, so Vinted, actually, I was counting, started 17 years ago, back in 2008. It was founded in Lithuania and out of a very personal problem. So co-founder of Vinted, Milda Jasaitė, she was actually about to move apartments, and she realized that she had a lot of clothes she didn't need anymore. I think she said she had around 300 items, and her new wardrobe would only fit around 100. So around the time, she also was going to a party. She met her old friend, who was a developer, Justas Janauskas, and they started talking about her problem. They were brainstorming whether a platform where you can buy and sell clothing, whether actually could solve the problem. Justas wasn't initially convinced, so they had to run the first market research at the party, and they got some positive signals. I think it was 2 minutes, and they were convinced that, okay, this idea actually has legs. So Justas started developing the next day, and that's how Vinted was born back in 2008. And fast forward to today, we are in 23 markets. We are expanding beyond fashion. So actually, anything you have at home, we'd love for you to be able to buy and sell on Vinted. We are also next to Marketplace, running payments business unit, shipping business unit. So we're going deeper into the value chain. And actually, around 40% of our users say that now secondhand is half of their wardrobe. So we actually see that what was a platform for Mildas and Justas and their friends' problems is now resonating with millions of our users. So that's where we are today. You know this even better than I do. There's a caveat to the story. So around 2016, company was in a more troubled situation. There was a little runway left, and so the founders invited the current CEO, Tomas Plantenga, to come into Vilnius and actually help them find the right strategy. And Tomas came up with a lot of bold suggestions. One of them was to reorganize the company, which actually meant a lot of layovers. He also came up with the idea to change the business model and to start investing very actively into user acquisition. The founders discussed it with him and actually bought into the plan, and the turnaround happened. So they rode out the storm, and around 2018, they went out fundraising again. It was maybe the third or the fourth fundraising round. And I know that at the time, they had the backing of the current investors, but you were the first external investor to come in at the time. Right, so can you tell the audience a little bit more, what did you see that made you so bullish? What did you see in Vinted?
So, I'm old enough to have grown up with the first generation of classified businesses. So think of Blocket in Sweden, Le Bon Coin in France, Subito in Italy. My co-founder in Sprint, Pierre, was actually creating these companies and founded them and launched them out in Europe. And we were pretty sure at the time that the network effects those had created were very, very difficult to attack and challenge. And then we started looking at Vinted, and one thing struck us, because we had always run around the world saying Le Bon Coin in France is probably the best marketplace. It had taken the old model, but it made it freemium, so it was free to list on Le Bon Coin, and it was a massive network effect. And the first market where Vinted started to grow and really kind of become a strong player was in France. And I was like, but this can't be. Like,
right.
According to my cookbook, this is not going to happen. So then we went, why is this happening? And you had, born out of, this is interesting, I think maybe a good takeaway for many founders, born out of that desperation of not having enough money to pursue your first idea, you had really had to rethink the idea of Vinted. So you've turned it into a freemium model and a buyer pay model. And you had added all the latest technologies on that purchase. So I, as a buyer, had to pay, which is kind of counterintuitive in the marketplace, but I got so much in return for paying. I got the free shipping, or the shipping, I don't know if it's free, but I got the shipping, the escrow, and a whole kind of much more convenient checkout and fulfillment process versus the old classifieds, and that really took off. So the combination of the innovation and the challenging the most powerful marketplace was quite impressive. And I'm thinking, when I look back at that, and I look at the team that we interacted with, and I look at Vinted today, Justa still comes to the board meetings, like the founder 17 years later. Thomas is still there, he's working harder than ever. What is it in the spirit that made Vinted go through these hard times, pivot, and now come out stronger than any other marketplace in Europe? What is the core of the...
Right. So I think the team definitely has a lot of drive, and I think it comes from the fact that we are building out a new category, because re-commerce is a different type of e-commerce. So you have the building blocks from e-commerce that you can use, but they have to be adapted. So for example, shipping cannot be too expensive, because otherwise no one is gonna buy or sell a €3 t-shirt. Payment needs to work for a C2C, consumer-to-consumer transaction flow. So there's these deeper problems that we actually have to solve, while we're also building out a platform and acquiring users and making sure that they are trading successfully. And I think because of this kind of potpourri of things we need to solve, there's this drive. I think another thing is the turnaround. I think it's still ingrained in the company, and so that means that we're kind of not able to just sit back and be comfortable. And perhaps the third element is that Vinted was founded in Lithuania, is headquartered there. We have quite a lot of teams based there, and Lithuania is a young country, very much with a big drive to succeed. People are ambitious, they're analytical, they're resilient, and I think this also very much resonates with the company values that we have. So I think in total, I mean, everyone knows e-commerce. Not everyone knows re-commerce yet. I think re-commerce is at something like 10% perhaps of the kind of total e-commerce sales. So there's definitely a long way to go, and that just by itself kind of translates into this drive.
And now, if I can challenge that a little, so you're still the drive, the young, spirited company, but now you're heading ventures. So if you need to have a venture arm, does that mean you've become a little old in your old spirit? And why are you launching a venture arm?
Right. So we definitely don't think ourselves as a sort of corporate, as a stagnant company. We're still growing fast, even though we are close to 2,000 people team. And we're in 23 markets. We actually make decisions quick. We're building things. We're using technology wherever we can to solve it. So we really don't like to think ourselves as a corporate. And why we're doing Vinted Ventures is because we are in the midst of the market that's being created. So we know re-commerce can be big, because we already were able to push the boundaries to the current levels, but we think there's still a long way to go. So basically, our idea with Vinted Ventures is to back the companies that are either building the platforms or going deeper into the value chain and creating the solutions that can actually enable re-commerce. And I think what's important, though, for us, and of course, is that the companies would be able to scale. I think it also comes a little bit from the type of company we are. We really like to understand what's the logic behind the solution. So why is this supposed to be the best solution out there? Why is it better than the competitors? What is the dynamic, that leads to this company being able to scale? Because that's also how we think about our own business. So we actually want to also see kind of the first signs of it in the companies we invest. So therefore, we decided that we're gonna start in Series A. And I think the last bit is that even though we invest in these industry pockets that are close to us, we do this with a financial return in mind. So actually, every company we invest in, we want to have the conviction that this can be an outsized player down the line.
And just so people realize, I don't know if everyone listened to Thomas' podcast recently, but he has an idea of Vinted becoming the Amazon for used goods. And having 50 billion in GMV, or I don't know what he mentioned, but a huge company. That would be one of Europe's absolute it would be Europe's largest marketplace business if his dream comes true. So in terms of how you look at what you want to add from the venture arm and what you can bring to companies, what would that be that you're looking for?
Right. So I do think that capital is still the most important thing that we can bring. But from our own experience, I think there are also three other things. So I think one of them is, let's say, our experience. So as mentioned, we have scaled out quite a bit. So we have certain playbooks, certain frameworks, certain metrics, and that can be just kind of a helpful guide on the side. The second one is the approach. We are, I think you know this quite well. We are a very data-driven company, also very much technology-driven. So that means we can also bring perhaps a different way of looking at the problem, which can perhaps be useful for the founder as kind of an adjacent way of looking at the problem they're solving. And the third one is that we are a business. So in some cases, we could be a client for the startups and actually anchor part of their growth. And even though we launched very recently, meaning we launched Vinted Ventures very recently, I already seen like pockets of this being real. So for example, we were talking to this company that's actually even pre-Series A, very early, building a platform in another market outside of Europe. And we're just discussing with them, usually at this phase, this is what we would see. These are the things we would push on. These are the things that we think are important. These are the things where we think you shouldn't worry too much that it's at that rate. And for the founders, just like, oh, okay, that brings me, another level of understanding, perhaps give me some comfort around uncomfortable decisions. It definitely doesn't mean that the companies need to run our playbook. That's not the idea. It's more giving them, the reference point, and that perhaps enables them. I think on the approach, we're at these advanced conversations with another company, and I have a team member who's building out a thesis, and he's asking so many questions to the founder to actually understand, why is this technology supposed to be better? And then the founder came back to us a couple of days ago, and he's saying, hey, I actually find these very insightful, so I think I'm just gonna kind of add them to the Q&A, perhaps adjust a little bit the narrative, and so it's gonna help me in this current fundraising that I'm doing. So we're like, okay, that's actually very happy about that. And the third one is on the growth. So there's a company that we're working with, and they're still early stage. We think they should be pushing faster for the growth versus profitability. And the nice thing is we can walk the talk here because we can give them part of our business and therefore anchor part of the growth so that then they can go to the other clients and continue growing. So these are the kind of additions which can be very important, but still the main thing for us is that we're providing capital because we're looking for the founders that have their vision, that have their ways, and they need this capital to amplify that. So that's still the primary goal.
And a shortcut to get to millions of users and
But wait, I actually want to stop here because these are the things that we want to do kind of with Vinted Ventures. But you founded Sprints 10 years ago. And at that time, in the European VC scene, what was important for you when you were shaping Sprints? Like, what did you want to be kind of the cornerstones of how you operate? And has that changed for you in the past 10 years?
So maybe politically incorrect at a tech conference, but I just felt tech was too much, or tech investing was too much about the new thing, the new technology, the new tech conference, and a lot about capital. Everyone was raising capital, everyone was complaining about not enough capital. But what we saw was that the generation of, and Vinted firmly and squarely fits into that, is that the kind of companies that are 5-10 years old, the best tech companies coming out of that first phase are incredibly good companies, and they're good because customers love them, because they can grow capital efficiently. They can be some of the most profitable companies in the world. So tech kind of is the birthbed of the best companies in the world. Maybe not always, the best technologies, but ultimately value is created by solving a problem for a customer and creating a very successful company. And so capital and technology here, happy customers and great companies here. We wanted to focus here. So we're building a portfolio of companies that have super happy customers and very efficiently managed businesses, so very profitable. So less about the disruption and capital and tech and abbreviations and more about people using products. Having said that, of course, someone needs to start at some point with a dream of a new technology, but and so I'm mindful of standing on the shoulders of the early stage giants in the venture ecosystem. So if we go back to the venture ecosystem, what is your dream to contribute from Vinted side into feeding it?
So I think for us, we have this clarity that we want to invest in e-commerce. We also have the clarity that we do this with a financial return in mind. I think the fact that we do it with a financial return in mind is actually a very good thing for two reasons. One of the reasons is that if we do this with a financial return in mind, it means it's sustainable, because then Vinted Ventures can actually continue to back the companies. And it might be sometimes tempting to think like, hey, I want to invest in this so I stay close to this model or to this market or things like that. But we actually really want to get behind the logic of why this is the model that's supposed to succeed. So I think that's number one. I think another reason also with why having financial return in mind is good is that it's also kind of a proxy for companies' ability to scale. And as we invest in e-commerce, for example, for Vinted, we do kind of sustainability reporting. And one of the metrics that we're looking at is that we estimate that around 40% of purchases on Vinted are replacing a purchase that would have done for, let's say, first hand. So that's kind of the main positive impact that we're doing. And because we invest in e-commerce, it's possible that other companies we back are also going to have a positive impact. And because we do this with a financial return in mind, and if these companies are able to scale, which is the goal, then it means they can create this impact at scale. So I think it's kind of very natural that we do this financial return in mind, but then we do this within the broad e-commerce space.
Good. How important are the numbers versus the spirit of the company and the energy of the founders and drive?
I think you told us when we were having the first call that we want to launch Vinted Ventures, and knowing us, you told us don't Excel your way out of the investment opportunities, because at Series A there's only that much of data that you can get. And I think that's a very good comment. We cannot expect that the companies will have the same depth in terms of data analysis, or the same precision in forecasting, or maybe the same understanding of all of the drivers. So we definitely need to keep that in mind. But I think the fact that we're Vinted Ventures, we're still building part of our culture into the process. And of course, from the fact that we want to see the founders that really understand the problems they're solving, that are able to put the team together and just are really focused. We also want to be able to have this kind of numbers as a proxy to then be able to really interpret and get behind it.
I'll tell you a secret I haven't told you. When we invested our the first time in Vinted, we had a long negotiation with Thomas, and in the end, he pushed us from 150 million in valuation to 200 million in valuation. And at that time, I said, I'm not going to pay anything more than 200, because we had all our models and we had done all the calculation. And in the world of wonders of tech, the last valuation was 5 billion, and I think that's not where you're going to finish. So the quality of our own modeling is questionable. Before we finish, to everyone here who wants to get in touch with you and discuss Vinted as an owner, potentially, what should they do? How do they get hold of you?
We're very easy to approach. Ping us on LinkedIn. We have Vinted Ventures page. Write us what you're building. We'll jump on the call. We'll understand. We'll hope to understand better. We'll ask you tons of questions. We'll probably throw a lot of questions around, the kind of what is really driving your business, what do you want to achieve, how big can this get? But we hope to have a very good conversation, and I think we start from there.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.